Hi, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for those of you who are at the workshop and to those of you who are following along at home. I really care for everyone who's watching this and the work you do, and I am more than ever wanting to come together in community and create art as a force of resistance. So, you being here with me means a lot today. I have a plan for this session, including a presentation, a meditation, a writing exercise, and then some free time to illustrate your page with collage. But I want you all to be comfortable, so please participate in whatever way you want to. Tonight, I'm hoping everyone can create or begin a page of art and words that is 5.5 by 8.5 inches, or half of a standard sheet of paper. While I give my spiel about my thinking and the inspiration behind the zine, if you want to doodle, draw, cut, take notes, or help yourself to snacks and drinks, please do. All right. So, first, a little bit about me. I think most of you know me, but I am a multimedia artist and creative writer working in collage, illustration, performance art, textiles, and animation, and a writer of short fiction, poetry, and creative nonfiction. Themes of my work include queerness and feminism and pop culture and magic. I've made or been closely involved with the making of 30 zines. I went to U of W for English with an emphasis on creative writing, but I've always wanted to be an artist as well as a writer, and I'm happy to be here today as that. As a self-taught artist, I wasn't sure if I would ever be qualified to be an artist in residence, let alone one for the city of Kitchener. And it's such an honor to have this position, especially given the amazing artists who have come before me as artists in residence and the extremely awesome, vibrant, creative community that's happening in Kitchener right now. And it's a pleasure and an honor to represent that and to be learning so much from being a part of that community, and also from working with Caroline and Eric at the city. I don't know if I would have become the artist in residence this year if it weren't for my singular focus on zines throughout my artistic career. Zines have been on record since the invention of the printing press, but they were probably around before then. And in the 1920s, the word zine was first coined as fanzines by science fiction fans. Around the same time, Black writers and artists who were part of the Harlem Renaissance published little magazines, which is a super cute name for them too, to share their work. And this is work that probably wouldn't have been published by the mainstream presses at the time. In the 70s, punks took zines on, further fanzines, and other niche fandoms did as well. And in the 80s and 90s, queers and feminists really kind of took zines as a way to express their identities and create community and share their work, as well as other marginalized communities. They've continued to be a popular format, especially for groups that are underrepresented in the publishing world, or even in like kind of mainstream art world since then. And I'm very happy right now to see a renewed enthusiasm for zines in the face of the rise of fascism, and in a time where we know that the internet is not a neutral platform and it's not really safe to share our messages and identities and organizing on social media. When conceptualizing this project, I did a meditation ritual on what defines us as a community in Kitchener. What is Kitchener? What is our identity? I had noticed artists and activists were increasingly turning to water as their subjects, muses, and as part of their rituals. I noticed too the places where Waterloo Region is replaced with Grand River, as in Grand River Transit or the Grand River Artists Collective. Here are just a few names of the groups and works that I considered or consulted with in planning my ideas for the zine. But as I dug into local water art, I uncovered more and more rushed out at me. There's just so much. I am sure I'm missing so many crucial works and artists here. But in my preparation for this workshop and this zine, I kind of have had to come to accept that I can't represent or include everything and everyone, which has been a source of anxiety for me because I want everyone to have a voice and everyone's work to be recognized. But in the interest of time, there are many people, groups, and populations and issues that are deeply tied to the water cycle who I won't talk about today, some of whom I'm thinking about, and some of whom I am sure I'm totally unaware of. And I welcome you to bring those forward to me in the group, individually, or in your work if you feel called to include things that I've missed. But I came to see that water is so profound, perhaps especially here in Kitchener, that almost everyone has done some sort of work directly related to the water. I looked back at past artists in residences and saw how many of them engage with the water, from Susan Coulin's biodegradable interventions with water to Mary Abdel Malik Reed's group who goes to the river on the full moon to scream, to Bangashimo's portraits, which often are set in front of the water. And here we can see the awesome Amy Smoke and their kid Sky. And Janice Jolie, who is seen here in a photo in the Grand River. And later I will show a video of her river performance. One of the groups of activists and artists I reflected on was Land Back Camp. I feel in 2020, there was such a worldwide shift in our culture in general. And I perceived in our community, it was kind of focalized. A lot of the energy was focalized and really harnessed well by Land Back Camp, who were occupying the park at the time. And how crucial it is that the movement is being led by Two-Spirit and Indigiqueer artists and activists, and how their work seems to me to have opened up new possibilities and ways of thinking for us as a community. One crucial way it's changed us is that it has asked us to think more about why we name our most sacred places after colonizers and instead shift to the renaming of Willow River Park. And it totally makes sense to me that the most beautiful park that we have would be named after its gorgeous natural features rather than an archaic old colonist. We are not led by monarchy in our lives. We are led by nature. I have even noticed that some of the artists I most admire locally refer to the Grand River itself as Willow River and the watershed as the Willow River watershed. I've always had an interest in language and how it comes to be. And I've discovered that there have been so many different names for the river. I went to the Willow River Center to consult with Bangashimo about their experience with the artist in residency program. But while I was there, I had the opportunity to talk to Amy Smoke too. They explained to me that the name Willow River isn't new. It's a translation of the original Mohawk name, Os Kenionatiti. And from that conversation, I learned so much, and especially how locally the story of colonialism is so tied to the water. It's with the utmost gratitude that I acknowledge that Kitchener, where I work and live, is situated on the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. There is evidence of humans inhabiting southern Ontario as long as 14,000 years ago. And Amy told me that there have been items proving the existence of settlements dating back to at least the 1500s, probably a lot earlier, that were set up specifically near the confluence of what is now known as Schneider and Strasburg Creeks for trading purposes. The first instance of non-Six Nations settlers began in this region in the 1700s. In 1784, after the American Revolutionary War of Independence, the Haldeman Tract was given to the Six Nations of the Grand River and Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation by the British as compensation for their role in the war and for the loss of their traditional lands due to colonialism. Throughout the 19th century, settlers from England, Scotland, Ireland, and Germany developed Anglo-Canadian settlements along the river, including what would become Kitchener. Of the 950,000 acres promised to the Haudenosaunee, 6 miles on either side of the Grand River, all the way along its length, today only 48,000 acres, the Six Nations Reserve south of Brantford, Ontario, of the Haldeman Tract remains Six Nations land. And the images you're seeing are two works created by local Indigenous artists responding to the Haldeman Treaty and its history and present. And the first is called Peace and Friendship Bracelets. It was a piece by Mohawk artist Courtney Sky as part of a fabulous exhibit called Treaty Girl at UW Longhouse Labs. And in this piece, she wove very intricate friendship bracelets to form the words of the original Haldeman Proclamation. And this piece, which is at the Kitchener Public Library, and so working there, I walk past it all the time, by local artist Alana Jewell. It's called the Haldeman Proclamation. And this indicates the area of land along the river that was promised to the Six Nations people. And this is how it stands today, this tiny little puzzle piece representing the land that is still theirs. As a settler, I have benefited in so many material ways from colonialism. But there are ways that it harmed me too. I grew up right near the boundary of Kitchener and Waterloo in what they now call Midtown. I always loved water and wanted to be near it. And I had heard about the Grand River, but I didn't know what it was or where it was or how to get to it. I told Amy this, and they commented on how weird a phenomenon that was, one that they had heard from other people who grew up here, which they struggled to understand because they grew up on the Six Nations Reserve and spent a lot of time in their childhood in the river. Growing up, my main sources of being near water were Silver Lake and in Waterloo Park and the lake in Willow River Park. My mom told me these were man-made lakes, and in my childish mind, they weren't real water. I also love Laurel Creek behind Waterloo City Hall, or where it flows behind the Bridgeport Plaza. I found it so calming to watch the water flow and sparkle and to see the plants grow up around it in the spring and the ducks and geese make their homes and worlds and cultures in there. But these two I saw as man-made because the creeks were encased in concrete, and the concrete was always adorned with graffiti, and the water was always littered with booze bottles and shopping carts and Zehrs bags. So I conceptualized the river as something on the periphery of my world, something that I would have to plan to drive to and park and find an access point to get into, and something that isn't safe to drink from or swim in. And these creeks as something separate from it, created by the city, and that these sources of water that I had access to weren't real water, but a simulation of it, like a swimming pool. I felt separated from water and nature throughout my whole youth, and I think I searched to replace what I was missing in not very healthy ways. But even though I felt separate, it was all around me the whole time. I don't think I really grasped what the word watershed meant until writing this proposal. But when I became a teenager and started exploring the city on my own, I started to see that the water is actually the river's veins circulating all through our city. And these mystical creeks and streams, and even the man made lakes and trickles of rivulets and puddles, and even the depressions of land where water once was, are actually all connected to the great, majestic Willow River. Thanks to my friend Joseph, who shared with me this user-created map of all the water in Kitchener, Waterloo, and Cambridge, I started to understand how they're connected even further. The Willow River watershed is the biggest watershed in southern Ontario and includes the river and all of its effluences and tributaries. Kitchener is the largest city within the Willow River watershed and contains some or all of the following creeks: Schneider, Shoemaker, Strasburg, Kolb, Montgomery, Laurel, Betzner, Dune, Henry Sturm, Balzer, Malitzer, Sandrock, Bluegill, Laurel, Detweiler, Carey, Bechtel, School, Stonegate, Freeport, Lackner, Parkvale, Blair, Voisin, Westmount, Hidden Valley, and Newman Creeks. Notably, most of them are named after settlers or their settlements. This illustrated map of the Willow River watershed by Steve Shizaki nicely envisions how all-encompassing it is. And you can see how similar it is to the design of a tree or roots or our circulatory system. Becoming an adult and starting to bike more gave me greater access to the river in a way that you can't get by foot or car. And one day, my wife and I crossed the bridge here in front of Freeport Hospital, walked our bikes down a steep hill, looped back beneath the underpass, followed a dirt trail that backed onto someone's backyard full of chickens, and then entered into a dreamlike oasis. And suddenly we were soaring along on our bikes with a wild deer bounding along beside us in the grass and a hawk circling in the sky above us. And in the near distance, we could see the sparkling, rushing water, so immediate that if we wanted to, we could get in. Seeing these free wild animals and later seeing herons, ospreys, beavers, turtles, frogs, and fish always felt so special and made me wonder what other creatures live here. It's like a whole other universe and ecosystem living right alongside us that all my life I had been separated physically and intellectually from. And I always found the combination of exercise and the sounds and smells and sights of the water to be so inspiring that poetry or stories or a solution for a visual art piece that I'm working on would just form in my mind, and I would have to stop and sit down to quickly write it all out or draw. But then there's the other side of the watershed that I also love. As an adult, especially in times of strife, I really love rambling around town by foot or by bike, often stopping by water to meditate. I love the trails that the city has provided, but I also love entering spaces where we aren't really sure if we're supposed to go, where there aren't really well-trodden trails. And I love finding all the different access points to the river and creeks, especially the spots where water intersects with the city, like at crosswalks, bridges, or overpasses, and sewers. I really like the contrast of the natural beauty alongside the parts of society that we keep hidden. As anyone who visits the watershed often, you'll know it's common to find remnants of life there. Parties, rituals, sex, crime, shelters, and of course, graffiti. This palimpsest of culture and nature creates so many mysteries in my mind and imagine narratives for me. Like what do these ducks see happen here that we will never know? It's almost like there's a whole other city that exists when it comes close to the water. And perhaps there is another world that exists in the waterways at night. The further into this project I start to feel kind of obsessed by the water. And I start thinking that almost everything is water. And how come I never saw that before? Walking around downtown, I took in the puddles, manhole covers, sewers, drains, plants, sun, animals, people, roads, cars, buildings, cranes, and it is all water. Some things I can't even explain why they're water. They just are. And the more everything around me becomes water, the happier and more alive I feel. In the Surface Tension audio tour created by members of the Wonderful Creek Collective, whose artists, members, and body of work are primary influences for this scene, writer Jeff Martin, considering everything that Schneider Creek gives, Kitchener, asks, what in turn do we owe this ribbon of water, this belt of sky? This quote provided me with the name for the zine and an image to help me visualize the way that water weaves in and out of our existences, not just through the creeks and streams, rain and snow, but also through pipes, taps, drains, and in and out of our bodies, totally enshrouding us. I also really like the name because I'm a big fan of women's art, and the crafty femme aesthetic of ribbons is just really special to me. And I have a bunch of really cute, watery, glittery ribbons here tonight for inspiration, or if anyone wants to incorporate them into their pages. I'm just going to have some water. So I felt so much more connected, but I wondered why I had been separated from the water physically and conceptually in my childhood. I sensed in my parents, especially my mom, a desire to live closer to nature too, and I guess she satisfied that need with her gardening. And every night in the summer, I would go outside with her as she watered her flower beds, and the simple act of watering made us both feel more alive. But it was like we could only access that feeling through the work of gardening. I don't remember being taught this specific separation, but I feel like some combination of colonialism, capitalism, and Christianity that informed my early education and robbed from me the peace that comes with recognizing that I am nature. I am water. The earth is not ours. We are the earth. My parents and teachers weren't trying to rob me of my divine right to this. They were robbed too and didn't even know it. Colonialism was so powerful and omnipresent that it was invisible. So we didn't even know that we were so harmed by it and so harmful because of it. I like this quote from Earthly Education that says, colonialism didn't just steal land, it rewrote the story of nature. It taught us to see the earth as something to dominate, not something to belong to. The fight for decolonization is the fight to unlearn this lie and rebuild our relationship with the planet. Anishinaabe elder and water rights advocate Josephine Mandamin, known as Grandmother Water Walker, walked around the Great Lakes from 2003 to 2019. And she said, we've known for a long time that water is alive. Water can hear you. Water can sense what you are saying and feeling. Following Josephine's teachings, Bear Clan Anishinaabe elder Marianne Kebesai was led to walk along the Grand River in a ceremony called the All Nations Grand River Water Walk. In Anishinaabe, the Anishinaabe word for water is Nibi, and the ceremony connects with Nibi's spirit to offer her help, songs, good words, and prayers in a time when the earth is suffering. In addition, the All Nations Water Walkers offer monthly ceremonies by the river. I had the privilege of attending one in November, led by Métis water walker Lori Minor. Lori Minor, as we offered tobacco to Navy and sang songs to her, flocks of geese, ducks, and seagulls rose, levitating in the misty air above the river for a moment to sing with us, praising the water for what it gives and takes. At the close of the ceremony, Lori offered us all water from a copper vessel to drink from our cupped hands, and went around the circle asking one word to summarize what water means to us. And some people said words like respect and sacred and flow. And when they came to me, I said community, because at that moment, I felt so connected to the other people there. I wondered if that was what church might feel like. I've never been part of a religion. My parents were both raised Catholic, but my dad rejected it on scientific grounds and my mom on political grounds. For myself, being a queer person and knowing that from a very young age, I was never sure that I would be welcomed at a church, so I never bothered trying. And I didn't really see what I would get out of it. But sometimes I have wondered if I missed out on a particular facet of community because of that. I've noticed many churches locally use river in their names. The River of Life Church and the River of God Church are both in downtown Kitchener. And I follow an artist and activist from Brooklyn named Britton Smith, who created an event called Water Church for primarily Black queer folks who felt unwelcome at their churches. And though I'm not a part of an organized religion, I have become very spiritual and enjoy learning about and practicing parts of many of them. And I more and more think that community care networks are the only chance we have of getting out of the mess we're in. And I can see why church communities have always played an important role in those, and why the river and water would be such a strong metaphor in religion. Sometimes this art community feels a bit church-like because, and I mean that in the most positive way possible, but because we're united in supporting each other in our pursuit of truth and beauty. And I see communities so much like the spidering veins of the watershed. I have people I know from being gay. I have people I know from being an artist. I have people I know from the library and people from my old drinking days. And they all form tributaries around me and connect with one another in a way that is really powerful and supportive. I think many of you I don't know just through one channel or avenue, but many. And the people in my life have come to be there through such a multiplicity of ways, but all meet at this confluence of life to create a community that kind of permeates the whole city. And these are some of the pages that I'm creating so far for the zine based on these ideas. For today, I wanted to incorporate some actual water from the watershed into this workshop. So if you were at the workshop, you would see that I am diffusing water that I collected from the Willow River. And I also have a jar of water that I collected. Well, it's melted snow from the banks of the river, and it has like dead leaves and some sticks and other debris floating in it, for people to use as reference and inspiration. I'm diffusing the water from the river through the room so it can be with us and the work we create. I wasn't sure if it was ethical to take items and water from the river, so I asked a couple of people about what they thought about this. And at one of my meetings with the Creek Collective, my friend and fabulous artist Jackie admitted that she uses water from the creek in her beautiful paintings. And I feel like the water would like that. And Erica shared and another amazing artist in the group, Erica, shared their perspective on how taking a little bit of water from the river can't really be that bad because you can't destroy water. It will always return to the water cycle. And I found this statement really moving. growing up, I always heard that factoid about how we're 70% water. And I thought that was really weird because I felt so solid. But now I like to remind myself of that fact when I'm feeling my mortality or insignificance or too big for my britches, that most of me is not even me, not even mine, but something that circulates through me, through you, and through pipes, and through pee and tears and sweat and river and groundwater and plants. And it makes me feel less alone and less separate. And I just love this quote by Britton Smith, who says, "When we all die, all the water in our bodies returns to the water cycle. No matter what we do, no matter how we die, we return to the source. I grew up thinking I was going to hell. What if someone had told me, yeah, the church says that, but what's bigger than the church is nature. And nature says no matter how you love, no matter what you do, you will return back to this holy, sacred thing. One day you'll become rain." So that is the end of my presentation about my thinking around this zine. And thank you so much for listening, if you have listened for this long. um, I know it was probably a lot of sensory input and thoughts to take in. And I'm about to go into the guided ritual part of the workshop. But before we do that, just please make sure that you have three half sheets of paper, and if possible, one large sheet. It can be lined or not lined, it's fine. And a pen or pencil, whatever you want. This exercise is based on a combination of my favorite meditation practice, which is Yoga Nidra, and the techniques of one of my favorite comics artists, Linda Berry. It will guide you to do some writing based on your memories about the watershed, and you can use this writing in your pages that you submit, or you can use completely different content if you choose. But I hope this will get us into the creative zone. So yeah, your pages will be, I'm using cardstock. I just like the weight of it. You can just easily fold a 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock in half if you want. It doesn't have to be perfect. Put a line down the middle or cut it down the middle, and then you'll get a 5.5 by 8.5 piece of paper, which is going to be the size of the zine ultimately. But for this practice, nothing has to be too exact. And the pages, the finished pages are can contain anything you would like to express. If you want to think of this presentation as a call and your pages like a response, that would be awesome. That's one way I've been thinking of it. If it can be tied directly to any of these topics or your experience of the watershed, your experience of this community from your perspective and lived experience, but I'm also kind of open to seeing where your minds go. So I don't have a lot of specifications for what I want in your pages, except to note that this zine will be coming out late spring, early summer of 2025. So if you want to try to keep the images and your imaginings to warmer weather water, I think that'll be really nice for the reader to experience it in the summer, reflecting the weather they're reading it in. And yeah, as you saw, a lot of my pages combine collage and text. I haven't really added a lot of text to these yet, so you can add text however little or however much as you see fit. You can illustrate how you see fit. Okay, so now we're going to start the writing exercise. And what To begin, I want you to find a very comfortable seat where you can draw and write. If that means you want to move to a different spot, please do. And if you want to sit at a table, great. If you want to sit in a comfy chair and write on a book, that's fine. Once you are in your chosen spot, see if you can do any shifts or wiggles or adjustments or stretches to get even 1% more comfortable. I like to sit cross-legged while I do anything. Now I would like you to take a deep breath. Inhale deeply and exhale completely. Now take one of your sheets of paper and a pen or pencil. Place your pen in the middle of the page and take another deep breath and begin drawing a slow, tiny spiral. Spiraling out, but try to keep the lines of the spiral as close together as you can without touching. And as you draw, remember to keep breathing. Relax your body. Relax your mind. And continue drawing your spiral while you listen to this poem called Against Logocentrism. A diversion of water, a meandering path. What will the city make of me? I cannot read a map. In a knee-deep sleepwalk, I light out at sundown, carrying a tuning fork, wearing a nightgown. A beak breaks the surface, and untangling sea reeds, I wade with my headlamp, reciting the treaty. I come to a cave thing, as a fin braids the river. I hear the stones singing, a night heron shimmers. I light up the concrete, revealing graffiti. I submit the question, what do they want from me? A big brown bat hovers and says without speech, to read the veins in the rock and let them sing through thee. Okay. Finishing up your spirals, I want you to please now take a new piece of paper, and we're going to take a second to generate ideas about what to write about. So if you would please write the word watershed at the top of your page and underline it. Then write the numbers 1 to 10 along the side. You can see the reference up on the screen. Okay. Now I'm going to start a timer for 90 seconds, and I want you to try to write down as many words or associations or images that the word watershed evokes for you from your memory. You don't have to justify why it evokes that word or image or phrase, so don't think too deeply about why it's connected. Okay? I'm going to start the 90-second timer now. 30 seconds left. Okay, finishing up. Writing your last item. Okay. So hopefully you got a good amount of words. It doesn't matter if you got 10. I want you to now please look at your list and choose the word, phrase, image, or memory that draws you to it the most and inspires you to write about it the most. Or as Linda Berry says, choose the one that has the most trouble in it and then circle it or highlight it. Now we're going to write, and I'm going to set a timer for 7 minutes, and I want you to take the lined or larger piece of paper, lined or not, doesn't matter. And I want you to put that circled word at the top. And so when I set the timer, I want you to begin writing and write continuously in a continuous flow for the 7 minutes. Without stopping, without thinking too much. No planning of what you're going to write or worry about whether it's good or not. You just want it to come out as intuitively as possible. And it doesn't even matter if the words make sense or not. And if your mind goes blank, just write the alphabet or draw that spiral until words start to come out again. Write in whatever language and tone that comes most easily to you. And and then if you can write in cursive, that's the best because it flows out more fluidly. But if not, print is totally fine. Just make sure that you keep going continuously for the 7 minutes. Any questions before we start? Okay. I'm going to start the timer now. All right. Ready, set, write. Okay, 3 minutes left. One minute left. Thirty seconds left. And finishing up your final line or sentence. Okay. And time. Okay. So, how did people find that? Are your hands sore? Minus. I'll read like a tiny bit from mine. And my choice of image was Mucky Mycelium Dreams. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And I'll just read my favorite part. I hope you'll go through yours and reread it and then underline or highlight any lines that you particularly like. And if you're willing to share them, that would be awesome. My favorite part, I guess, here is after having radiation, so I was part isotope and had neon strands of spider streaming over me like a blanket. I lay on my couch, slowed down almost to a stop, barely ticking, but in my mind, traveled into another dimension, under my house, into the molten muck, somewhere between the earth's core and the rotting stump of an old tree, and the mycelium and the toads and the toadstool and the mud as old as time spoke to me and finally connected with me. I'll stop there. I can't wait to see what you wrote, and I hope that you'll take a piece of that writing, or it's totally up to you, something from another piece that you write or plan or inspired by this, and illustrate your page with collage or drawing or painting, and incorporate your words somewhere into that page. And then you can submit it to me in person, or you can scan it and send it to me at ellieanglin@gmail.com, ELLIEANGLIN @gmail.com. Or you can also send it to City Hall, marked attention, Ellie Anglin or Caroline Varon. If you could please submit it by March 6th for inclusion, that would be awesome. And I look forward to seeing what you submit. And I can't wait for this zine to come to be. Okay, I love you. Bye.